Prestige. It's a word we all know, right? We think of success, respect, admiration. But what happens when the very people who helped build that prestige get, well, forgotten? We're about to get into a story that asks a really tough question. What's the real cost of getting to the top? So, if you look it up in a dictionary, prestige is pretty straightforward. You do something great, you get respect. Simple. But that definition leaves out the most important and messiest part of the equation: people. And the moment relationships and history get mixed in, that simple definition, it just completely falls apart. And that leads us right here. What happens when prestige is just a label? A shiny name that hides actions that completely betray the respect it's supposed to represent. Let's dig into that through a pretty powerful personal story. To really understand how things went so wrong, we have to rewind. We have to go all the way back to the beginning, to a creative mentorship that was built on a solid foundation of mutual respect. Okay, so this story really starts with a creator named Flowers. Think back about a decade ago. She had this raw talent, this spark, and she connected with our narrator, who had founded a creative movement called Vertigo. She didn't have all the skills just yet, but man, she was hungry to learn. And you have to understand, Vertigo wasn't just a name on a t-shirt. It was a whole culture. It was built on 3 key pillars: love, respect, and unity. And these weren't just fluffy words, okay? They were the actual standards for how you treated people and how you approached the work. This was the world that Flowers grew up in, creatively speaking. So the narrator poured everything into her: time, energy, teaching the craft from scratch. Eventually, Flowers connected with another creator, Sincere, and together they launched their own new brand, Prestige. And even though our narrator had stepped back at this point, you could totally see the DNA of Vertigo in what they were building. Watching from a distance as Prestige got bigger and bigger, the feeling wasn't jealousy, not at all. It was pride. You know, that quiet satisfaction you get from seeing someone you mentored just absolutely kill it? And for a long, long time, that pride was the whole story. Until suddenly it wasn't. Because one tiny interaction, one question that seemed totally harmless, was about to blow up years of shared history and respect. It all kicked off with some simple curiosity. Our narrator saw Flowers posting a lot about football long after the season was over and just figured, oh, cool, maybe this is for a new project. So they reached out with the kind of casual question you'd ask someone you still think of as family. This was it. This was the question. Hey, what is all this football stuff about? Super simple, totally casual, coming from a place of a decade of friendship and creative partnership. And this was the answer: cold, dismissive, and just shocking. It was like a slap in the face, completely tossing aside the respect that used to be the bedrock of their relationship. The narrator had to say something back, right? This wasn't just a rude comment, this was a violation of their entire history. The question was basically a gut check, a reminder of who they were to each other. And there it was. No apology. No, oh, I didn't mean it like that. Just doubling down. A clear, unmistakable line drawn right in the sand. In that one moment, something just broke. This wasn't a simple misunderstanding you could talk through. No, this was a clear signal that the past, their history, it just didn't matter anymore. The narrator even tried to open the door for a real talk, but was just met with silence. Cold indifference. The final goodbye was sent, and it was accepted with zero resistance. The connection was just severed, as easily as closing a laptop. But the story doesn't actually end there with that one broken bond. The hurt from that initial moment was about to get a whole lot worse, thanks to an echo from the past. So you have this 1-2 punch. The first blow was the direct disrespect from Flowers. But then came the second hit, the echo. Another former mentee from the Vertigo days, Reese, publicly sided with Prestige, basically giving a thumbs up to the disrespect their own mentor had just received. And that second betrayal, that echo, whoof, it hit even harder. It felt like confirmation that those core values of Vertigo, that love, respect, and unity they were all brought up on, had been completely erased. This whole story really forces us to take another look at that word, prestige, and ask ourselves, what was really lost in the chase to get it? So maybe we need a new definition. Maybe real prestige isn't just about public success. Maybe true prestige has to include an elevated level of respect for the people who helped you get on that path in the first place. Look, the narrator's disappointment was never about Flowers' success.
It was about what was left behind on the way up, those foundational values that were just sacrificed for the climb. The respect was just gone.
And that leaves all of us with a pretty heavy question. When you're climbing that ladder to the top, it's so easy to focus on what you're gaining, the name, the followers, the prestige. But this story really forces us to stop and think about what or who of real value might be getting lost along the way. What is the true price of prestige?